Hello, I'm Natasha Gutierrez. Welcome to Rappler Talk. With me today is Pompey Lavinia, who was President Duterte's 2016 campaign manager. Pompey, welcome to Rappler.
Not campaign manager,
Social media campaign manager. Social media director is the official title.
In charge of the volunteers.
And in charge of the campaign of now President Rodrigo Duterte.
Among many. Of the social media aspect dealing with the volunteers.
So that was your specific focus?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying. You're here today because of a picture that has surfaced on Facebook and is now being talked about and discussed.
Yes.
Specifically, it was taken on May 2015. That was a year before the presidential elections. And the reason that photo, of course, is controversial is because it was with Alexander Nix, who is the now suspended CEO, as we know, of Cambridge Analytica.
Yes.
We'll start with a very direct question, which is on everybody's mind.
Yes.
Did President Duterte's campaign work with Cambridge Analytica?
No.
Did it work with its parent company, Strategic Communication Laboratories?
No.
So no links to Cambridge Analytica or SCL?
As far as I know.
As far as you know.
And I also know that Secretary Dominguez, who was our finance officer, came out and said that they did not pay for any of these.
So we'll discuss that statement also because we do have a few questions on that. But let me give you a chance first to explain. Let's talk about that photo. When was that photo taken? And tell us about the circumstances of that photo.
The photo is real. It's on my timeline. It's been there all this while. It's in public setting. I never hid that photo. Neither did Peter. And I just didn't know that it was Nix.
So also in that photo, of course, was Peter Lavinia, who was the spokesperson of the campaign, as well as now Undersecretary of PCOO Joel Egco. So three Duterte...
Whose name I didn't even remember till it came out in the reports.
Three Duterte-linked officials, one being a government official.
Yes.
You, of course, were a former government official as well as Peter. And also the person in that photo was Taipan Millan, who is a friend.
Let me talk about the photo. It's a real photo. It's never been hidden. It's on my timeline for all the world to see. Now, where was the photo taken? It was taken at the National Press Club. We were there because we wanted to strengthen our relationships with media, traditional media. I did not know the circumstance, but I think probably through the president of the NPC, who is now that undersecretary, we were invited. I was just told there was an event there about election. You know, I mean, some new information, some new technology, so I went. But my purpose was really to find friends, you know, from my College Editors Guild. And I can't remember if before or after the press con they served food to all of us.
So you don't even remember if it was before the talk or after the talk?
After, but it's right after or right before.
Okay.
In the same room, open space. If you've been to the NPC office, second floor Intramuros, no walls, several tables, and we were in one of the tables. And if you look at the food there, no offense to the NPC, it's not dining food really, it's pancit. And Natasha, we did not even pay for the food. Even the iced tea that Raisa Robles makes so much fuss about was paid for by the NPC. And Peter Lavinia took a selfie, he tagged me, and I accepted the tag.
There was a talk beforehand by Alexander Nix.
Yes.
Do you remember that
after?
Talk? Before or after? You don't remember?
I don't remember.
On that same day, there was a talk. Do you remember the talk?
I remember the talk. It was like a press conference. I think there's a picture of it. There's three people on the table, right? Alexander Nix, the president, Joel, and there was somebody else. I don't remember who was there, but you should be able to identify that. There were at least 5 or 6 cameras there, networks. ANC was there because I remember the next day they were showing it under heavy rotation. And he made a presentation and people didn't seem interested. There was 1 or 2 questions and that was the end of it.
Is there anything specific you remember from that presentation?
Yes, the big thing they're making about now is psychographics. It's really old news to me. That didn't excite me because I took my master's in AIM in entrepreneurship. I can show you here, in this book by Eduardo Morato. he already talks about psychographics, and he
And when was this published?
2006, and here is my guru, by the way. One of the people I listened to, aside from Sun Tzu, Duterte, and I listened to Nix too. I learned from all of them. But on page 66 and 67, it's talking about micro-market analysis. Okay? And it's talking here about segmenting customers. Now, his teacher was Ned Roberto. He's also a classic, he's one of those legends in AIM. And he talks about segmenting, and he even used the word psychographic segmentation. I'll give you this. This is an Inquirer report in 2013. So they use psychographics all the time in marketing.
Absolutely. Psychographics
Here
has
in
been...
Capital Commons, right?
Absolutely.
Some of the buildings here are psychographic targeted.
Right, but
there's
the
a building
issue,
here for first-time owners, right?
at least for this specific psychographics, was the use of Facebook data. And it was Alexander Nix with Cambridge Analytica that sort of pioneered this and uses for elections. This is why there's a controversy.
But let me answer your question first. What I remembered was his statement about emotions being more important.
So that's what you took away from that.
Yes, because I was a newbie. I thought, it's about federalism and these are the ideas. You'd have a better argument. That had always been my concept of politics. But when he said that, it was a new thing to me, and I was seeing it happening on Facebook.
Okay.
And so I realized also that, parang tama. And I realized also that Facebook is an emotional medium. Now, you were saying about Nix, with the problem with Nix?
Right. Right now, obviously he's in this scandal. And it's hard to believe that someone like you who reads books and is very interested in campaigns didn't remember that it was Alexander Nix that you spoke to. So it was a talk that now you say you took something away from, but you don't remember his name.
I don't remember his name. This was in 2015.
Right.
And I'm not God. I do not know who I'm talking to when I first meet them in 2015, and I do not know what he will do in 2016.
Absolutely.
And when the name Alexander Nix came out, alam mo, there's so much fake news. Honestly, I wasn't interested in the news. Until, you interviewed me, then I became more and more interested, and I read up on it. But this isn't important what his name is. I'm acknowledging that it's me that was in the picture, that we were there.
Yeah.
And when somebody authoritatively said it was him, fine, it was him. It's been there all this while.
So when was the first time you sort of realized it was him?
When I read Raisa Robles' article.
Okay, so only then. So even when, I guess, sort of, when you mentioned that fake news and you sort of stopped reading.
Yes.
So when the Cambridge Analytica stuff came out, you didn't really read about it?
I was reading more about it, I was thinking more like the Trump issue, how they're using data.
Okay.
And, I didn't connect it to here. So I wasn't really that interested.
Okay, so it was only when the article came out, or was it when the photo came out, that you realized?
Well, the article and the photo.
With the article and the photo when it came out, and you realized,
right?
oh, that...
And a cropped one at that.
That is Alexander Nix. And that was the person I met.
Because I read the article.
Okay.
That it said it was Alexander Nix.
Okay.
And I read that it was about Cambridge Analytica.
And you didn't know much about Cambridge Analytica until that article?
Until I read the article about the New Yorker, which you forwarded to me, the last 15 minutes in the car, I did not know the details of it. But I knew it was something about data. I knew it was something about the Trump campaign. I had heard about the Brexit, hearing it on TV since it got hot. Of course, I got more interested with a photo, right? What's happening, but to really get into the nitty-gritty of it, I didn't do it till today, on the way here.
Okay, so if you say that that was the first time and only time you met Nix?
Yes.
Because that was what is in your statement, right? Do you know who brought him to Manila?
I don't know with certainty who brought him to Manila, but I think there's a report. You wrote an article, and I think Manila Standard wrote an article, and I don't think they hide that they were talking to a Filipino consultant here. But whether what they were doing there, their exact business relationship, I have no idea.
Okay.
So I never met him, what's the guy's name again? Taipan again after that.
Was that the first time and only time you met him?
As far as I remember. But you know my memory,
Okay.
Natasha.
Okay.
Yes.
And for the record, you never
Yes.
spoke to Nix after that. How about anyone else from
I
Cambridge
never spoke to Nix
Analytica
after that.
or SCL? Anyone?
And who else? No.
Okay. Is it possible that you may not have worked with them directly, but you initially, in the beginning of this interview, said that there are other groups working on the campaign. You said you were only specifically assigned to volunteers.
Correct.
So is it possible that anyone else from the Duterte campaign could have worked with Cambridge Analytica or its parent company?
Well, anybody from the Rojas campaign could have, or the Poe campaign could have, right? We don't know.
Yes.
Because what my knowledge is only what I know, which I was focused on Rodrigo Roa Duterte only, as instructed by the campaign manager, and focusing on the 16 million volunteers. But on the other side of the campaign, Duterte Cayetano, I think Secretary Sani has come up with a statement that to me makes sense because I think I showed you the budget I proposed. It was about that amount, and I think at another interview, Nick Gabonada said that was that amount. And I think the president has also acknowledged that he spent that much. So there's a consistency there. That's like what? That's $100,000. And if you've read the, I'm sure you read the article you forwarded to me. You're talking about $1 million for a Nix consultant. But I know the mindset of the official campaign. That our worry was even more getting on Channel 2, Channel 7.
Okay.
You know, Natasha, even now, I'm telling you, with the senatorial campaigns, people pay lip service to social media, but they're not really investing in it.
Okay.
The couple of candidates who will, I guarantee you that they're going to do really well. But they do not invest in it. They pay it lip service. They don't really understand it. It's almost on the level of superstition.
Okay.
Like using data is automatically bad. You know, Facebook is a neutral platform.
Yes, because
Right.
you used Facebook data
Correct.
as well in
Correct.
crafting your social media campaign strategy.
Correct.
But you definitively are saying you did not use psychographics in the same way that it is supposedly or allegedly had been used in the U.S. elections.
Well, how was it used exactly in the U.S. election?
In terms of targeting messages, so psychographic profiling and using, let's say, your specific personality.
What
Because
is wrong with that?
as a background,
What is wrong with targeting specific personalities? So, for example, Grace Poe runs, or somebody else runs for the presidency, and he's weak with women. What is wrong with targeting women with your message?
actually, I think in this specific campaign, it was the language that
Rappler
was used.
targets certain audience, right?
Psychographic is used by
Correct.
online businesses.
Correct. So
And
if I
this-
want to actually reach certain audiences, I would maybe boost for Rappler people who follow Rappler.
Except in this particular situation, it was the way the data was acquired that's in question.
Well, if the data was stolen, right, that would apply whether it's social media or not. Whether it's voter lists, right, here in the Philippines, being compromised by hackers and being used by direct marketers, that's illegal.
Okay, I'll clarify the question.
Yes.
So Facebook released data saying that 1.1 million Filipinos, may have had their data taken and used by Cambridge Analytica.
Illegally.
Yes, it was wrongly shared with Cambridge or wrongly acquired by Cambridge Analytica. That's
Cambridge.
1.1 million Filipinos.
Meaning beyond what is we agreed to legally when we
And what
opt
is,
in.
what you can just take from whatever analysis you run, okay? Because that is information
Beyond.
that's publicly available. So anything that's publicly available on Facebook, if you decided to, let's say, study specific quarters in your own analytical
That's
way,
legal.
of course, because that is open.
Right.
But when data is taken or stolen, that
And
is the
used
question.
in another platform, correct?
Or used in another way, in this case, in psychographic profiling.
Why? I don't think Facebook limits the use of psychographics. They don't say you can't use it for psychographics.
No, my question is, I guess, let's
I mean,
stick with 1.1 million Filipinos. That data was not given to you. I want to make that clear.
Yes, it was not given to us.
Okay. We have
and
some...
at that point, I wouldn't have known what to do with it anyway, if it were given to us.
I'll just backtrack a little, because you did mention, I guess, you mentioned Dominguez's statement.
Yes.
Yes, that they did not pay for that service.
Yes.
It's been under debate also on Twitter. That statement was actually not a categorical denial that CA or Cambridge Analytica was not used by the campaign. It just said they did not pay for it. So is it possible, for instance...
But he did not say that he used it either.
And neither did he deny it, right? And neither did he deny it.
I can always question any statement like that by saying, you did not categorically deny that, right? I mean, because statements are made to be short.
My question is, and I will return to that original question, is it possible that any other camp within the Duterte campaign may have had talks or interactions with Cambridge or SEL?
So could have the Rojas camp, so could have the Binay camp. I don't know.
Okay, with Duterte we don't know.
But if you look at the reports, there's a report that it was used during the presidential elections prior, right? Prior.
Yes.
That was the Aquino elections. And so you would think that the one that has links to them was that side of the political fence in 2016. But I am not saying either that they, because I do not know.
Right, okay.
I mean, how would I know?
Okay, that's clear. Did President Duterte or his running partner, running mate, Alan Cayetano, use any foreign consultants during this campaign?
You would have to ask them.
Okay. Were you aware of any?
If I were aware, I wouldn't tell you because there is friendships involved, and I don't think it's in my place to do that.
Okay. Let's turn to Twitter. There are some questions for you from some Twitter users. Megarex asks, is hiring trolls part of the social media strategy for Duterte during the campaign? Here it says for spreading Duterte ideology. I assume we were talking about the campaign since that was your job. Yes.
No.
Okay. That was not part of the strategy.
Yes, because why would you need to? During the campaign, there was 9 million identifiable Duterte supporters.
Okay.
It's very easy for you to verify Natasha, like when you boost and you pick Rodrigo Duterte as an interest there. At that time, it was 9 million, if I recall. Okay. Now it's 16 million. Why would I pay trolls?
So, no. Definitively, no. Okay. No. We have another question. Some
election
interest
time,
on Twitter. Yeah. Okay, that's clear. During the elections, no trolls.
Yes, because that's the only thing that I can speak of with direct knowledge.
Okay. Hector Apita, what's the reason why... Oh, this is going back now to Alexander Nix. Why the campaign team was with Nix?
Because we went to the National Press Club to cozy up to editors, network representatives, because our candidate was weighing a run, and Peter Lavinia his father actually was an MPC member.
Okay.
And he was looking for the picture of his father there. He renewed his membership. I was curious to see if I could see some old friends from College Editors Guild, and we were invited. It was a public event.
Okay. This event was public. Did you see or recognize anybody else from anybody else's campaign?
No, because I didn't know any. I knew my professor, was with the Binay camp, Professor Tomas Lopez, who also taught us psychographic profiling in class. But I didn't see him there.
So no other.
Okay. I was a newbie.
Okay.
Basically. And I don't know who they invited.
And at that time, President Duterte had already declared his candidacy, and you had been appointed?
No, he had not declared his candidacy.
So why were you there? Just out of interest?
Because we were weighing a run for it.
Okay.
We wanted him to run, and he was considering a run, and we were going around, and we don't want to be left unprepared.
Okay.
Now, whether he was decided to run or not, that's only he can answer.
Okay.
He has mastered the art of formlessness, as prescribed by Sun Tzu.
Okay. Social media in 2010,
Yes.
actually it's now being dubbed as sort of the first social media elections of the Philippines.
Correct.
Is 2010, right? Do you foresee, or sorry, 2016?
Yes.
2010 was a long time ago,
It's
7
not
years
true
ago.
though, huh? But it's the first one where social media was
Really played a
successful.
factor, right?
Played a factor.
That's right. And do you foresee social media playing a heavier role or a bigger role in next year's elections?
It will be par for the game in 2019.
Okay.
It will not be social media per se that will. It will still be the strategies. You know, people think it's social media that made the president win, but no, it's the candidate, his position on the issues, and almost by force, we had no choice, we had no money for traditional media, we got into social media, and the other people ignored it. It's almost by serendipity. We were I was mastering it as we went along. I showed you my books. I read about 6 books on that, and I took what I could take from that 15, 20-minute talk of Nick's. I took what I could take from what I learned from AIM.
You said it was about 15 to 20 minutes?
If I recall, yeah.
Okay.
15 to 20 minutes.
Okay.
The usual press con where they make a presentation and then there weren't too many questions. I wanted to ask a question, but I was a bit shy, actually.
Did you ask him at the meal?
I may have asked him, no, I think it was more of small talk.
Do you remember
At the
a
time.
conversation with him?
At the table? I don't really remember. I think I may have asked him where he lives. you know,
Okay,
things
so
like
nothing
that.
significant that you would remember 2 years later.
Nothing you would talk about in a round table, you know, with so many other people. I mean, it's just a normal conversation. My main takeaway was from his actual presentation.
Okay, which, like you said, was the emotions.
Emotions drive elections. That's why if you read the paper that I wrote, the strategy paper, I was talking about that. I was talking about the emotions of anger. People being very angry with the status quo, about the feeling of hope, right? And then I was talking about the pride in being a Mindanaoan, a Visayan, di ba? I knew this instinctively from Facebook, but that insight there gave me a framework to it validated what I was seeing, because I thought it was quite strange that people were so emotional on Facebook.
Okay.
Because that's not the way I am.
Okay.
I thought I would be writing 10 essays on why, you know. And but on Facebook, people were so emotional.
Okay.
And so when he said that, okay, it connected to me.
And that is what you admit you learned from Nix.
That was my main takeaway
Okay.
from him. But I had also learned it on Facebook
Okay.
generically.
Okay.
But it, you know, he was there in a suit with
To have someone else
with a
reiterate
tie,
it.
you know,
Okay.
and he gave it, and he said, and this is actually common knowledge naman among election consultants, but I was new to it. I think he walked us through the process. First, they have to be aware. Then they have to like you, right? Likability, and then you know,
Okay.
it was like a short mini course for me in
It's like a crash course.
101.
Okay.
In 15 minutes.
He also actually in that talk, according to an article online that was there during the talk,
Yes.
mentioned psychographic profiling and behavioral targeting.
Correct.
And these to you,
Ho home.
okay, at that time.
2006, read about it. We know the behavior. We study behavior. That's what
Although
entrepreneurs
that
do.
talk was in 2015. So when he mentioned it in 2015, psychographic profiling, it wasn't of interest
Old
to you.
news to me.
Okay.
I didn't know. Perhaps if I had known that you could do it on Facebook,
It would have been more
I
interesting
would have
to
been
you.
more interested. But it was, it's here, 2006. We did it when we did our thesis. We had to do it. We observed people in Jollibee, what they do. They smell their food. What people do in SM, the moment of truth is when a customer raises their head. If the sales girl doesn't react, you would probably lose the sale. That's all psychographics. So when you start talking about psychographic, it was new to me.
Okay. We have more questions in Twitter.
Yes.
And just going back to what you said, that it isn't a particular social media technique that would make a president win. Of course not. I mean, it is the candidate. But it is important to discuss social media and the factor it plays.
Yes.
In influencing votes especially, like what they've noticed in the U.S. elections of Trump, because that's what is in question.
Correct.
It's the influence, and the meddling has been the word that's been used, of course, of a foreign, company in a U.S. election. So that's is correct. In itself highlights the power of social media.
It's very powerful, Natasha. And as a people, as a country, we cannot be superstitious and say, this is technology, it's evil. No, these are neutral technologies. Good and evil is not in the technology. It's not even between yellow, white, red, and black. It's in the heart of every man. And it moves, according to Alexander Solzhenitsyn. It moves every day. So we cannot be superstitious and say we don't understand it, therefore we're afraid. We embrace it. Like, theoretically, let's say I'm assigned to the tourism department, right? And
Theoretically.
And Boracay is cleaned up. And we want to say that we want to have an ecological tourism now, that we won't damage it. I would want to know the psychographics. Who would be interested? Would they be driving Toyotas in the U.S.? Or would be driving that car of, what's his name, Elon Musk?
But of course with legally acquired data.
Correct.
And with language that is non-toxic.
Well, legal or illegal data, that's very clear. But what's toxic and not?
Hateful words,
Teenagers
hate speech.
swear on Facebook all the time, right?
But hate speech and targeting sort of, using that sort of language for your advocacy.
Well, what is wrong outside social media would also be wrong inside social media. Right?
Okay.
I'll tell you something. It's getting finer and finer, and now that even now you can post on Facebook. Let's say you were in high school and you liked a boy, or you liked 5 boys. You could actually target them specifically with your posts.
Yes, with boosting and targeting
with
audiences.
The email address. No, down to the email address now. I could input 10 email addresses there of people.
Make sure they see that post.
Let's say I want you to see all my posts, and I knew the email address you use on Facebook. I could put it there, right?
To make sure they see that.
So maybe the where ethics come in, and this is developing, right? So we do not shy away from it because we have questions about its morality. We tackle it, right? So maybe the problem there is you didn't know that I put your email address in. Right? That's why Mark Zuckerberg yesterday, or this morning, was saying that they're going to start labeling political ads. See? We're fine-tuning the laws as we go along. Because at least now people know, okay, it's a political ad.
And that it can be exploited. I mean, data, Facebook data, for instance. So it needs to be labeled.
As political ad, if it is, or an ad if it should, diba? Just like those people selling minerals and how they say no therapeutic claims.
Yeah, so in the same way the political ads can be exploitative, there needs to be some sort of label to say.
Yes, but where do you end it, right? I mean, fake news, we know fake news. When Raisa Robles cropped that picture, is that fake news?
What was the crop in particular that you
go to
feel
her
offended
website,
about?
I can't remember. She herself acknowledges.
But
the
photo is
picture.
but the full photo is there.
Okay, but
so what part of the photo is you think problematic?
It's no longer the exact photo.
But in terms of, do you mean in terms of it having come out on your Facebook, or you're talking about the background?
Facebook account.
So
all this while.
Right, but the crop on the photo.
Because I think she cropped the picture so that it's only the 3 of us, and it's so big, and we're like so cozy or something,
The photo that I saw in the article, I think, was all of you in the frame.
No, there's one. Go to her website, and there's also.
Oh, not on the South China Morning Post story.
Okay.
Okay.
But there is also fake logic. Do you outlaw that or not? Here's our logic: picture. Therefore, Duterte was branded by Alexander Nix, and therefore Duterte paid. Fake logic.
Okay, let's talk about logic. And
do we outlaw that?
Let's talk about logic.
Or do we, as viewers, just discern what's correct or not?
Well, this is why you're here, of course, to clarify your side. But talking about actual logic and
because
data.
the drink was tea and not beer, Therefore, we discuss business.
Logic and data. Okay, let's go back. Logic and data.
So
and,
which one would you make illegal?
And articles that are,
All right.
Have
Okay.
this, including my recent one with
All right.
Estrategia and those links, right?
Yes.
So that one actually specifically ties a local political consultancy firm to SCL, the parent company of
And they
Cambridge.
both acknowledge,
They
right?
both acknowledged there have been talks. What do you know about Estrategia?
I don't know. Did you ask me about them when you came and when we talked?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't recognize. So you're a reporter. You should be able to sense if somebody's faking it or not.
On the record, of course.
I had never heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I did recognize when the picture came out. I did recognize Taipan, and I'm not denying that he was there and that I met him, and that he was with Nix. But beyond that, I really don't know what their internal arrangement was.
And you don't, like you mentioned earlier, you hadn't worked with Taipan.
I had never worked with Taipan,
Okay.
and I have never seen him or remember seeing him after that. So I don't know if there was in a big party when he was in one side of the room, but we've never had a substantial conversation or any text message or anything after that.
But he was on that table with you just as someone who came to view, or now we know that
Well, we know he's from
they
Davao,
talked, and
right?
we now know that
Yes, he's from
you know,
Davao.
part of why Nix came was to speak to Estrategia.
We know that now,
yes.
right?
But
And
back
they
then,
probably saw that you were a campaign, and if
Okay.
you read the article, the New Yorker article, he's a salesman. So
Okay.
a salesman, the first thing does is take leads.
Mm-hmm.
Probably sends a lead, right? Sat down there and tried to sell.
spoke to you. Okay. Did he try to sell to you?
Not really. The selling was in the press con.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I may have been curious of his cost, diba?
Do you have notes from that day?
I couldn't find them because you were in a hurry.
When you do
wanted
find
4
those
o'clock.
notes. Okay, let's go back on Twitter. There are some
Yes,
questions for
yes.
you. Oliver Segovia is asking, who were the local digital agencies and executives who worked on the campaign?
Who were the local?
Local digital agencies.
On our side, it was all crowdsourced. The
No
volunteer,
PR or advertising
volunteer
agency
side.
that you
Yes.
worked with?
On the advertising side, the
Mm-hmm.
website, I think they used Tibwa. That's on the Duterte Cayetano side.
Okay.
But I think that was basically more on the website.
Tibwa.
And I don't know, they did our ads, our
TV ads.
mainstream TV ads.
Okay.
And they
Was
may
also
have
Tibwa.
done the website. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
And, I think Nick Gabonada is on record, right,
Mm-hmm.
saying that he did have 200 or whatever. And
Okay.
from that, Maria concluded that there were 16 million trolls. So again, that's false logic. No offense to her, she's, and I don't want to talk about bad things about her. I'm in her house.
And this was in a specific Rappler article. The one where there was
Weaponizing
Facebook.
the internet. See,
Right.
I tried to learn about, it's not just Nick's, even you're weaponizing 1 to 4, I read them. Because I want to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I want to learn because, Natasha, technology is changing so fast. Right? I mean, if you don't learn, if you become superstitious, technology is evil, then we're going to be outmarketed by Thailand. We're going to be outmarketed by all these other people vying for tourists.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, we grapple, we try to master it. If there are ethical problems, we solve them.
Okay, let's go back to Twitter. We have another question also from an Olivia, this time Olivia Penero. Was running a social media campaign for Duterte's election quite easy, or did you have to put in more effort to portray him positively?
It was easy because he is who he is. And that's what you see now, and that's what a lot of your viewers don't like, but 80% happen to like it. It's a numbers game. So it was easy. It was hard in terms of not having resources. It's hard in terms of the hours because we had basically, if I show you my Facebook statistics, I was basically 24 hours a day in terms of my followers being online, because we had a lot of OFWs. But it was also very exciting because an insurgent campaign is always exciting.
Of course, and with all the challenges.
All the challenges, all the resources against you, the establishment against you. Exciting.
Okay. You ran the social media campaign of this president, and now, from an outsider looking in,
Yes.
what do you think about the administration's current social media strategy?
I don't really want to comment on it. What you see is what you get. How do you evaluate a communication strategy? Okay, you evaluate it by its normally you evaluate it by the ratings, the trust rating and approval ratings of the president.
Normally.
Normally, that's that common thing. That's what pollsters tell you. So he's at 80%. Right? So how can I say? Would I do it differently? I would, but it's not exactly something I would want to do.
Okay.
I've always been an insurgent, so
Okay.
I don't think working for establishment in communications would be something I would want to do.
Okay. You are active on social media. You see the conversations on social media about the president and the sentiments, but also the language that's used. How do you compare social media when you were running the campaign of the president to now, after the administration? Do you believe it was weaponized after? Do you feel any sort of massive difference between that time and today?
Media has always been weaponized.
Social media in
politics.
particular.
And social media is just part of media.
And for you, personally, what do you think?
And it was not social media that made it very emotional. It was the election. It was the reality, the environment of that election. People being very frustrated with the administration, people very angry at the situation. That's what it was, just being expressed on social media. It's not weaponizing the internet. The internet just allowed these people to express themselves. Now the difference, during the election, anger was quite natural, right? I mean, people felt anger, frustrated, but now there is, to me, a certain, I myself, it turns me off. Anger turns me off.
Okay.
Now. Secondly,
You said you think there is a certain
meanness already
meanness
to it,
Okay.
for me.
Yes. Okay.
And there is a certain, and I'm not talking about the Duterte camp in particular, but what I see on both sides, connived. It's connived on both sides. And it's all just about anger or putting people down, and it has no purpose. What's the purpose? In an election, there's a purpose, because people were actually, at that time, and it was also really true, people were really angry.
But do you feel like it is
I did not
worse
feel
now?
that anger, by the way.
Okay.
As initially going in, I was there as federalism, but you could see it. It was natural. People were very angry about that Mama Sapano. They were very angry about the LRT, MRT. I was kind of a little bit blind on that because, I lived a basically more sheltered life. But the anger was there. It's real. It was real then. Now, half of it might be real, half of it might be connived. I don't know. That's just my observation.
Okay, and you mentioned that technology has sort of made this possible, of course, given this anger and giving it a platform to be expressed. However, we really can't also ignore the fact that the communications office of the president that you helped elect has...
That I still support.
That you still support, absolutely, has an undersecretary, Mocha Uson, for instance, who is known for... the speech, the sort of violent or hateful speech, for instance, or Thinking Pinoy, who has been hired as a consultant of the Foreign Affairs Department. So it's hard not to also, and of course, like you said, this is coming from both sides, but as government linked or government officials, who sort of spur or start or not even, are involved also in this sort of hate speech. It's hard not to say that that's also not a factor in what you said was meanness on social media.
Well, I'm not talking about them in particular.
But it's
I wouldn't want to do that.
But you can't deny that this is
I'm
part of
talking
that
about in
environment.
general.
Okay.
In general, on both sides, on all sides, and I don't like it really.
Okay.
Personally.
Okay. I will rephrase this also.
Yes.
What do you think the communications office of the president can do better? Or the communication strategy of this administration?
I wouldn't give Martin Andanar. He's a big boy. He's been, worked with media all his life, so he hasn't asked me for advice. I wouldn't give him advice.
Okay. So if you were the communications secretary, what would you do?
I wouldn't want to be communications secretary. I wouldn't. I wouldn't want to dwell on that.
Okay.
I don't want to dwell on that. It's also theoretical. Well, let's do it on a very theoretical, academic level.
Okay.
I would segment, okay, the evil word segment, my messaging on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even Snapchat differently.
You would use Snapchat?
Because they have different psychographics.
Okay.
Right? The psychographics of Facebook is emotional, right? People trying to vent their anger, people trying to vent their frustration, whereas the psychographics of Twitter maybe were like people like you who read the New Yorker, right? Who want the legal arguments, the logical arguments. Instagram might be more visual, young. So I would
have a different strategy per channel.
I would also, siguro naman, no? Maybe somebody could hire me as their social media director so we can talk about it na rin. I would also probably, escape my mind, talk about segmenting it.
Use psychographics.
Psychographics is not evil to me.
Absolutely, and it's not. It's just,
yes.
It's right, like we said, psychographic segmentation has been around forever.
Yes.
It's the acquisition of
I
data.
think what social media has done is the death of the precinct, as we know it. There will no longer be a precinct, especially in the social media enabled, not in the feudal areas where they could still herd people in to vote, but as we get more and more into a middle-class country and people have access, there will be the precinct as the main organizing
yes.
unit of elections will be dead.
Okay.
So that's what I would do different. And I would do a lot more Facebook Live, I remember now. I would now hedge my bets and not totally rely on Facebook.
Okay.
I would want to have more of across many platforms, segment it even more legally, be aware of psychographics even more. Because, as I wanted to do this during the campaign, but we didn't have the money. But in Obama's campaign, 2012 and 2008, they could get it down where if you are a volunteer caller.
Right, it's very drilled down, yeah.
When I pick up the phone, it's a neighbor calling me who might share the same psychographics, whose kid goes to the same school, and therefore now I have a better chance of getting him to volunteer. See? But we didn't have the money for that.
And going down to that level is the goal.
Yeah, that's really website-based. And these were all opted-ins. These are all, because in the US, you could opt out of the calling lists. Diba? So they did it. But I think the problem with Alexander Nix, really, from what I'm reading, is he's being a salesman. He claims too much. I read the article. I mean, come on. Natasha, 101 wins, 0 losses. Do you really believe that? I can claim 2 wins, 0 losses.
Well, there have
Maybe
been...
I'll have 3 by 2019.
You're not the only one who has sort of questioned the claims of SCL.
yes.
So that's I guess, a sentiment that's not,
Yes. So that claim of the
Unusual.
Philippines may be true, may not be true. It may
Okay.
just be a claim.
Okay.
But what he said there was a candidate who came across as very nice, right? Too nice and too upright.
Right.
And he needed to be tougher.
That was from 2013, however. So
2013.
yes, and Facebook did not acquire the data they needed for the psychographics until
So that was not
2014.
a presidential election.
No.
No,
It
but
was
I
in
think there's a
2013.
2009. You was talking about a presidential election where he was successful.
That was from as early as 2010. The SCL had that on their website. We actually had an article yesterday about
So
claiming
they were not talking about the Aquino?
in
Villar?
2010. In 2010.
They were talking about it.
It doesn't specify, but it was said in 2010, and the photo along next to the blurb was from the May 2010 elections.
And they were saying that they repackaged a candidate from being so too upright and too nice.
That one from 2013 is more unclear. It doesn't,
okay.
yeah, it doesn't specify. But
Yeah.
wrapping up,
Yes.
what is next for Pompey Lavinia?
We'll see, di ba? I mean, I've always been somebody who takes things as they come along.
And you do still support the president, like you mentioned.
I still support the president because basically it's not personal, it's not position. We share the same angst about Mindanao, Mindanao's history. We have hundreds of years of shared history, Mindanao being oppressed by foreigners, eventually, in our view, Imperial Manila. That's our narrative, Natasha. We see things through that lens. That's why when the president swears, when I was an exchange student in the U.S., I actually made that same kind of speech to my high school class about history. But of course, I wasn't swearing.
Okay.
So it's something that we're really connected on, and I've always wanted a strong government for me. I've always been in favor of federalism, so I will always support him.
Would you be open to returning to the government?
I would be open to returning to government. Maybe see if I can really be productive there. I had a talk with the president, and he gave me some advice on,
When was this?
I won't tell you the date, after
Recently.
Roque made his statement about me.
Okay.
He said he didn't believe any of the accusations,
Okay.
number one. Number two, he said he told me the secret to being happy in government service.
Which is?
For how to last long in government service.
And what was his advice?
To be happy. Then he told me how to be happy. He said, be productive. And if you read his articles, his speeches, it's about serving the people.
When was the last time you spoke to the president?
More or less after Roque came out with his statement,
Okay.
he reached out right away and said I was still a friend.
Okay, so we'll just have to wait and see for
Let's see what happens, right?
what's next
I mean,
to the presidential friend.
I did realize that social media is such a lucrative field, and being in government is.
So you could stay in social media.
I could stay in social media, but I could serve also, try to
Okay.
leave some kind of legacy, right? Tourism department would be nice with all the problems they have there
You did
now.
say theoretically, if that was something.
Theoretically, right?
Okay, well, we may
So-
see you soon then,
Yes.
sooner rather than later.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Natasha.
And that was Pompey Lavinia, who spoke to us about the social media strategy of President Duterte, denying any sort of involvement with Cambridge Analytica or its parent company, SCL. This is Natasha Gutierrez. Thank you for watching.